Part One-on-One with Mr. Burgher.
Welcome to Art One-on-One. I'm your host, Nichole Jordan, alongside your professional artist and master educator, Mr. Burgher.
Hello, how are we doing this evening?
Actually, good.
It's hot.
For how late it is.
Hot, humid Iowa weather. Getting ready for cooler things in the future. I can't stand
cooler things. We're having record highs tomorrow of 110.
That's exactly my point.
Degrees.
When you're in the triple digits, it's no fun.
It is miserable.
So I'm glad that we are hopefully moving on to fall weather.
You always wish away certain things. We are in summer. We are not in fall yet.
Exactly.
I mean, I love fall. That's
screw
my favorite,
summer. I hate summer and I hate winter. If it was just fall or spring all of the time, all right.
I think I would vote for that too.
So let's move somewhere where it's fall and spring all of the time. Anyway, well, it's on the docket for Art 101, Art One-on-One.
I think, as usual, we'll start with Ask the Art Guides.
Ask the Art Guides, which is our segment, which has been, I think this is our 10th Ask the Art Guide segment, where we're using cards from Lawrence King Publishing. And so what have the art guides given to us for a conversation starter today?
The art guides have given Sonia Delaunay, I think is how you say her name. Delaunay.
Let me see. Sonia Delaunay. Now, this is a first.
Butchering that.
This is a first for this segment.
What do you mean?
This is an artist that I am completely ignorant of. I don't know anything about her. So we've got to. We're going to have to consult the oracle. The art oracles comes with a little booklet, which we have not had to use.
Well, okay, but you can look at this. This is what if you want to get true to what the oracle cards are about, it's looking at the card and deciphering what it's about based on the card. So, looking at this card, surely you can say something about this, and I can.
Well, I can. There are things that I can say about the card, but what do I know of the artist who's represented on the card?
Well,
here's what we do know based on the booklet.
Okay.
It says that she was raised in St. Petersburg, which is Russia.
Okay.
Or what was once Russia, by educated money-bagged relatives who supported her art education in Germany and Paris. Wooed by the Parisian avant-garde, she studied in the City of Lights, which is another nickname for Paris. In Paris, she got married, and together they helped develop Orphism. O-R-P-H-I-S-M, Orphism, which I'm completely ignorant to up until this moment. I've never run across that term, but it is a cubism offshoot defined by vivid colors and geometric shapes.
Which
is obvious on the card.
Which to me does look like that. That is one thing that I would have guessed from this card, is it had something to do with Cubism. Who's another big Cubism artist?
George Braque, Pablo Picasso. We've talked about it before.
Well, I know, but I knew.
Those are like Braque and Picasso are the
That's how
the
I would have described it. Cubism, or an offshoot of Cubism.
The Russian Revolution left her without cash flow from her family, so she supported herself with textile costumes and fashion design in Madrid, which is in Spain. No less experimental than her paintings, she showed that the applied arts are damn fine too. Now, that's kind of interesting that she would transition from the fine arts into more decorative arts or textiles, clothing, things like that. So, again, this is the first time we've used the little booklet. Obviously, I was ignorant to what we were doing, so we're just going to have to go with it.
Couldn't you have looked at this card? Okay, truly, couldn't you have looked at this card and probably?
I mean, the cubism. The cubism. Sure. I mean, obviously,
vivid colors,
the abstraction of what she's doing. Sure, but I wouldn't have gotten all of the where she grew up. I wouldn't have all of that.
Obviously,
how she progressed, the development of an offshoot of cubism, like all of those fine points.
Well, that's where your intuition
are the fine parts of a story.
Okay, well, that's where your intuition is supposed to begin. And if you're a true oracle reader,
I'm not.
I know you aren't. We've never really truly used them like we're supposed to. We've used it to guide the conversations, and like the reason why we ask the art guides is just to basically give us direction for
the conversation.
And so we hope that it's a good direction that we can tie it into.
Well, I don't think we're trying to see where we're supposed to go. We're trying to see where the conversation should go, more so than anything else. So I think you're right. I mean, and so do we want to focus on the life, the work, or the inspiration of this very fine artist that I'm oblivious to?
I like the life, which says, don't live to 94 without founding an art movement.
Which she did.
Orphism.
And I think that's part of it. You've got to find your own way a little bit.
It makes me think of, and maybe we shouldn't go down this path, but so we recently went to the Chicks, the concert, the Chicks, and different form of art, but they totally were using art to create a movement with some pretty strong, opinions, strong. What would be the word I'm looking for? Like they were
everything.
They were bringing up women's rights in their songs, the LGBTQ community and rights around that, and it was really cool.
A little bit of everything. They were putting lots of different politics, perspectives, the need for activism and open-mindedness and all of those things. They were kind of putting it out there and
using the platform they had, which is similar to
and I think that there's something to be said for the fact that when they first started out, their first couple of albums were pretty huge successes. I read in an article that was talking about the concert, and they had more traditional, more what you would think of as country-type country singers, also at the Iowa State Fair, and the Chicks, who are not without their controversy, were selling way more tickets than those country-type...
famous country artists. Really?
Country artists they're also on the platform of politics, but not the same type of politics.
Because they got pulled from country music, right? Like, they totally lost support.
I don't know if I would say they totally lost support. I don't know that much about country music, but I don't think they totally lost support. But I will say that when they first started out, they were on heavy rotation. They've sold more albums than the big names of country. Like Alabama. They've sold more country albums than Alabama.
Today or prior to their
ever in the history of Alabama, in the history of the Chicks/Dixie Chicks.
Yeah.
They have sold more they have sold, they're one of the top grossing sales machines or acts or artists of country music. I mean, they're big time. And to know that they said, you know what? We're going to shift our perspective because of our politics. We're going to shape our music around our beliefs that aren't necessarily in line with what you would think of as conservative country music.
Right.
And
it was a big shift. I mean, they still played a lot of the, the original music, their new album, but there were...
You always play the hits.
Right.
Right. I've always said that. There's a lot of you got to play the hits. And I think I've used that analogy in the past episodes. I remember saying that.
Well, it was really good. It just always, again, it goes back to how art, it always amazes me or inspires me when people use platforms like art, music, whatever it is, to create change or do something good. And I really feel like, I'm not saying I disagree or agree with all of the things they're advocating for, but I think it's cool that, because it's risky, I think, too. Just like putting art out there, they're going to lose a certain portion of their viewers because they are shifting. But it means something to them, and so they're still going to do it.
Well, and I guess I would say that I agree with... I don't think they said anything that I can really disagree with, to be honest with you. That may be controversial for me to say that.
I'm not going to say that because I don't know all of the...
Well, I guess I don't. Honestly, I haven't bought their newest album, Gaslighter, or heard many of the songs. However, if they're singing songs that are every concert we've gone to, there has been they do a remake of somebody. We went to see the
Ed Sheeran.
No, not
Ed Sheeran. He kept calling Ed Sheeran Ed Sheeran.
I don't know.
Funniest thing.
Did he do a cover? I don't think he did a cover.
Yeah, he did a couple. Well, no, actually, he sang a song because that surprised me. It was Justin Bieber. It was Justin Bieber's song, but he wrote the lyrics to it.
He wrote the song.
Yeah. So the other one that we watched was the Zac Brown Band, and they did have a couple covers you really liked.
Well, they did a cover of they did a Eric Clapton cover, and they did a Beastie Boys cover, and things, which I thought was kind of fun. So it's very customary that artists will cover or do another song by another artist, and so if the Dixie Chicks, what were formerly known as the Chicks, now the Chicks, are going to do a cover of a Dolly Parton song with Miley Cyrus, I think that's pretty cool. Because I'm pretty sure everybody, whether you're far to the right or you're far to the left, you love Dolly Parton. Everybody loves Dolly Parton. I think nobody cares about politics when it comes to Dolly Parton. Everybody just loves Dolly Parton. At least,
I would agree. I don't love her, but I don't.
But nobody doesn't like Dolly Parton.
Right,
though.
I would agree with that.
I
think, for the most part.
I don't think. Well, she's never been in a controversy. Nobody says, "Oh man, that Dolly Parton, she's a real pain in the ass."
She has new songs or a new record coming out.
She had a rock and roll because they put her in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and she's like, "I've never made a rock and roll album, and they're putting me in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, so I should probably do a rock and roll album," which is that Miley Cyrus song is on her rock and roll album.
Oh, did you listen to the Dolly Parton version of the Chicks song that they did?
You mean
who?
Well, it's not a Chick song.
The Chicks performed it, but it's a Dolly Parton song.
I've never heard it.
No. Okay. That's what I was asking. Okay. Well.
But
enough on that.
To the point, though, I think that it takes some courage to at 94 or
especially after what they went through. Because they got they were kind of ousted and went quiet for a while and just judged by a lot of people. So to come out, so it's like them stating, we're still going to do what we do, how we do it.
Right.
Which I think is...
Well, and that's commendable. And that's what art should be. And we had several conversations about that from the concert until now. We've had several conversations about that, how really... And I spoke with my oldest daughter, Brooklyn, about that today. We talked about that exact same thing, about how, it really takes some courage to step out and make that kind of art and do those sorts of things. And say, you know what, I've got a huge following, now I'm going to completely shift gears, and I might lose some people for what I'm saying and what I'm doing, but in the end, this is what I'm compelled to do. Yeah, you got to stand for your convictions, I suppose. So,
okay, well, I think we can wrap up.
Okay, well,
Ask the Art Guides.
So if we're done with the Art Guides, then what are we transitioning? What would you like to transition into? Oh, fearless pod boss.
Journey into the Archives.
Oh my gosh, journey into the archives. What are we journeying into this week?
Well, the one I picked was called Impression Wars, which you had to explain to me, really, because I didn't understand what was happening.
Right. You didn't I don't know.
I didn't know what war was going on and what. I don't know.
Well, Impression Wars is mostly about, because I always tried to use like things that students would understand to build the idea around.
Right.
I don't know.
Star Wars was popular. Was popular.
So I used Star Wars analogy to say, oh yeah, okay, Star Wars. If you think of the Star Wars universe in terms of the real life, that's kind of like the Impressionists, and you have your Luke Skywalker character like Monet, and you have your teacher like Yoda and Pizarro. You have your offshoots of subordinate characters, and some of it's a little bit.
Do you remember who Princess
Leia was? Mary Cassatt.
Okay. It always amazes me how you remember these things that you posted years ago. Do you always? I mean, I don't know that I've ever asked you about something that you didn't remember. Once it's in your brain, it's in your brain.
Yeah.
That's not how my brain works. I wish. How my brain works worked.
Well, let me ask you, since you just recently watched it, who was C-3PO? Number one, do you know the Star Wars character C-3PO?
I do. It's the little computer.
No.
No? It's the guy that's...
It's the tall... It's the
looks
golden...
kind of like a skull...
Yeah.
Sort of robot.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the little...
That's R2-D2.
That's right.
Yeah.
I don't like Star... See, this is where you and I don't love Star Wars. I watched some Star Wars with you. I watched some Star Wars with Drew. It was fine.
Well, people don't know who Drew is, but
Drew
that's okay.
Drew's my oldest son. Yeah. So
But to the point, I think that it's one of those things where, there is a character, like a C-3PO type character, and who would that be in the Impressionist world?
I don't remember that one. No idea. What? I mean, how do you characterize...
Pierre-Auguste Renoir.
And what's the characteristics of...
Well, because Pierre-Auguste Renoir was kind of C-3PO was kind of like, but he kind of went on his own way. He would kind of veer off and go his own direction.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's exactly what Renoir did. Renoir was with the Impressionists for only a handful of years, and then, boom, I gotta go. I gotta go to the, back to the, the salon.
Oh.
So he was only an Impressionist for a handful of years.
So who was your bad guy? I don't remember that.
Ooh, who was Vader?
I don't remember.
The individual, the nemesis of Monet, the writer who wrote the scandalous facts or his opinion, his critique of the show, saying that Impression Sunrise was just an impression of a painting, just like these artists are doing an impression of being artists. They're not real artists. They suck. And that was a art critic by the name of Louis Leroy.
Oh, I would have never gotten that. But I do remember the quote, because he also talked about, wallpaper. I don't know, it was wallpaper that...
When I look at it, it makes me think I'm going... Or something of having a stroke.
Yes,
when I look at it, I think I'm going to have a stroke or something.
It was awful.
And that's a bit of a paraphrase.
Yeah,
and I'm a little bit insulted that I don't know the actual quote, but it was a fantastic quote about having a stroke from looking at that painting.
I mean, it was. I do like the fact that it was hard for me to love, because it's Star Wars, and I'm not into Star Wars. Although I did know the characters, and I did understand the comparisons that you were using, so I thought that was cool how you did that. As far as rating, I mean, the content was really good, the comparisons were really good, the length was a little long, but probably because I didn't like Star Wars. I'm going to give that one a 7.
A 7?
A 7.
Now, here's the other thing. I don't know if you remember, last week when we did the Journey into the Archives, we talked about a Norman Rockwell painting called A Problem We All Live With.
Yeah.
A painting about the true story of Ruby Bridges, a little girl going to the public white school in New Orleans, Louisiana, and all the whole thing. And we started talking about your impressions of my analysis of, trying to make it entertaining and all of those things.
Right. You called yourself an entertainer.
And then we kind of got off track a little bit talking about that, and then we got back into the video, but you never gave that one a rating.
Oh.
So for the viewers that are keeping score at home, that obviously we all missed out on it because it wasn't.
Yes, I'm sure they're still sitting on the edge of their seats.
Everybody, I'm on the edge of my seat because it was never given a Nichole
I'm trying to think of all the dynamics of the video. I would say I like the length. I love the content, the background. I'm going to give that one a 9, but have I given one a perfect score yet?
Never.
That would be a close one because I did really, I love meaningful things like that. But yeah, we'll say a 9.
A 9.
This one.
I'm not going to pander and be like, what about a 9.5?
Well, I thought about it.
No. If it's a 9, it's a 9. I do appreciate the fact that you have gone back and looked at some old content, and hopefully that gives our people that are newer to the channel an opportunity to say, all right, here's something that you might like without having to dig through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pieces of content. I don't know that there's an easier way to search other than to know exactly what you're looking for.
Right.
So this gives people an idea, if nothing else, an idea of what's in the library of Art 101 with Mr. Burgher. So.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull some different, types of videos, lengths, different years back.
Yeah.
So far, so good, though. You haven't, I haven't pulled really, like I said, pulled any of the ones,
there have been a couple that there was one there that, I can't remember which one it was, but you did not like it.
Yeah, I do. I don't remember what.
I can't remember
what one that one was.
I'm trying to forget. It's.
And this one was good. It's more of a 7 just because, someone else may give it a 9 or a 10, but I am not a Star Wars. And the length of it, kind of. Yeah.
Well, there's lots of individuals. And again, if I was to go back and redo that, like Toulouse-Lautrec, for example. Toulouse-Lautrec very much fits with a Han Solo type character. However, Toulouse-Lautrec wasn't really an impressionist. He was more of a post-impressionist. So, if you really wanted to be a purist, then...
So probably needs to be a little bit lower?
So Han Solo... Toulouse-Lautrec really shouldn't be Han Solo. You should probably there are other people that are completely omitted, like Gustave Caillebotte, who's completely omitted from that video. And with all of the research that I've been doing into Impressionism as of late, if I was to redo that video, I would certainly I would change up the characters and the dynamics a little bit.
What's the newest I did like the newest Star Wars movie. What's that one called?
The something of Skywalker, like the.
Maybe you'll have to tie that into.
But and there's a spectrum of people that have opinions of Star Wars. Like, I grew up with the original trilogy,
Right.
And then the next generation of them, so it's 4, 5, 6.
Mm-hmm.
I'm boring you. 4, 5, 6 are that's like my home. That's my heart. That's my childhood.
Okay.
Whereas there are people of like my daughter's generation, in their 20s or 30s, and then they're gonna say, well, 1, 2, and 3.
Because it goes back.
Yeah. Those might be the ones that
hit home.
That are like that's their childhood, and then there's others that
Well, what's your view? I mean, what's the age that? What's the highest age? We checked this out one time. Like average age viewers, like the most viewers are like around what age? Remember we looked at this when we were looking at where
of my videos.
Yeah. Yes, you can look at the
yeah.
Analytics.
I've looked it up, but I don't. I think
remember?
It's like I think most of my viewers are. It's pretty close to 50-50 split with gender. It tips a little more toward male than female. I think that's because maybe I'm more tolerable to guys than I am to girls. I don't know.
I can vouch for that.
But what I will say is that the age range is like
kind of across the board.
Yeah, I think it's the highest at like 30 to 45 or something like that. So I think it's been long enough that maybe we should do like an end of the year thing and review all of the analytics.
Like most watched video, least favorite video.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so
you got a little ways before end of the year. You're getting ahead of yourself.
Yeah, we're only in. Yeah, we're not even to fall yet.
That's correct.
We're still in the summer. Don't wish it away. Right. So, at any rate, good. I'm glad that there was a good journey into the archives this week that hopefully some folks will check out. And does that transition at all into the
current video?
The current video? Not really.
Not really at all. They're very different.
Okay, so we're kind of all over the board, and I know that the big video this week that came out, the extend video.
Are you trying to do my job right now?
Is
Robert Smithson.
Robert Smithson. Sorry, I got ahead of myself.
Yes, Robert Smithson, and it talks a lot about earthwork, which is his type of artwork.
And I've also done a video recently specifically on earthworks, but I was sometimes my ideas for things come in the heat of the moment.
Okay.
So when you and I and my youngest kids went to Ledges State Park, we were walking around and you see the cliffs and the water and you're outside and it's like, gosh, this would be a really cool spot to make a beginning of a video. What should we make it on? And I started stacking some rocks and doing some things. And
which you have a picture. You have a picture of that in there, right?
Yeah, I do.
It's a cool picture.
And I, was doing a variety of things. And
as I was doing things with Hank and Etta.
As you were watching the children, I was thinking about art.
We were building sandcastles and moats.
I was thinking, this would be a really cool spot to make an art video, but what content do I focus on with the art video?
So you didn't know he was going to be your artist at that point.
Going there, I had no idea that I was even going to film.
I know, video. But as you're there at Ledges and we're messing around with the sand and the earth and
I thought
it wasn't until later.
It wasn't until like within that moment it was like, okay, if I was going to do an art video about what's going on, like who would fit? And to me, it was like, I've done a video that focused on earthworks, but I have never done a video that focused on just Robert Smithson, who is kind of a major artist, creative, that really helped develop it.
How early did he die?
He was in his 30s.
Okay.
35, 37, something like that. In an airplane accident.
What I love is how you pointed out, which I think parents, I don't know how many parents are out there listening, but like one of the most influential things that helped him to become or inspired him to become an artist was the family trip he took when they were like 8.
He's like 8 years old, yeah.
And it was around the U.S., and that was like what brought it together for him or made him want to be.
Yeah.
Well, it was cool. Like experiences. We need to give our kids more experiences like that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, that's one of the things that I know you have tried to do with your kids, and I've tried to do with my kids, and, just, in the world today, throwing the kids in the family truckster and driving, from state to state, holy God, this is the worst. But at the same time, it's also the best. Because those are memories that, it's easy to put, it's much more convenient to jump in an airplane, go to the airport and fly, that day drive turns into a 2-hour flight, but there's something to be said for we're all in the vehicle together.
Right.
And we're all it's hard to, sometimes you don't want the kids to unplug. It's like, plug in. Put on your earbuds or your ear pods. And I'll just shut up. I don't want to hear, like, he's touching me, or she farted on me, or she just wiped something on me, or what I gotta go to the bathroom. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? But it's that misery that really creates a memory,
Yeah.
I think it's that, how often in our lives do we remember, like, the average day? We don't remember the average day because nothing really stands out about it. But we do remember the trauma of having to load up in the family truckster and get all the gear in there, and oh my gosh. And then it's those memories that the kids will hopefully pass on to their kids, or they'll talk about when we're long gone. They'll still remember those things. Like, my kids will remember me dragging them to South Dakota on the 4th of July to, not see fireworks, because they don't shoot fireworks in South Dakota on the 4th of July because it's too hot, dry. Or, you dragging your kids to Minnesota to go fishing and
the Badlands is something that comes to my mind.
Badlands, that's South Dakota.
I had no idea.
I love that.
That was there. I will never forget driving up on that going, what the hell? Like, how is this here? And you drive for hours with nothing.
Flat.
It's terrible.
And I always think about it from the perspective of the pioneer, the settler, the person with the wagon, and the guy's got a mule and his family in the back, and he's just cooking along Iowa, and he's cooking along South Dakota, and he's just cruising along, and what are we doing here? How do we go around this? Because you're not going through it.
No, but how did that get there? Like, it's just crazy.
The rivers or the formations or I don't know. I wish I knew more about the geological explanation to why the Badlands are there. But
it makes me think, like, when you think of art and the earth, and that is one of the coolest places.
It's definitely like, the Grand Canyon is, very like a geological thing, but Yellowstone and the hot springs and the colors and the Old Faithful, and you look in some of those pools, natural pools around Yellowstone, like they're this blue that's just the minerals are just unbelievably beautiful. And there are things in our world, it doesn't have to be, like, art doesn't always just have to be, I made this thing, I made this picture, I made this sign, I made this graphic, I made this t-shirt, I made this thing.
Yes.
But just like Robert Smithson saying, I'm going to make a pile of dirt, and you're just going to look at this big pile of rocks and dirt. But the art could just be like an agate that's sliced, and you put it up to the light, and it's like the crystals and the things that are in there. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah,
So,
his works were, I would love to read more about him. I thought some of the pieces that you had on there were pretty cool. Some of them look alien-like, or, like you were looking at a, I don't know, alien site or something like that, but
yeah. Well,
he did a lot of cool things.
Yeah, and I think that he had some really interesting ideas. And the thing I always tried to do in my videos, when I talk about something over and over again, if you look at that video on Earthworks, there are some different examples of his work in that video than in the just Robert Smithson video. So it tells some different stories. Like I think I've done 3 or 4 videos on the Great Pyramid in Egypt, and each one adds something different. There's a different story, there's a different take, there's a different piece of information in each one of those, because I always feel like, one of the great wrestling coaches that I ever had, Coach Davidson. And Coach Davidson said, you go to these camps and clinics and things like that to get better at coaching. And if you learn one good new technique, then it makes that camp worthwhile. If you can bring that technique home and somebody can win a match because you got that technique, then it makes it worth the while. Educators, will say, if you go to take a class and you learn one new thing, then it makes it worth the while. And the same thing is true, I try to do with the videos. I try to put one extra little nugget, one interesting thing that's not in the others, so that it's, so there's always something that you can pull out that you wouldn't get if you didn't watch it. And
Sites versus non-sites.
Yes.
What was that about?
Well,
because I don't think I picked up. Maybe I.
So the site is like, so he made a thing called the Spiral Jetty, which was in the Great Salt Lake in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Yep.
And it's that taking the dump truck and he's making it, and you have to go there. But the non-sites an example of that would be, he would take a collection of the rocks that he would have put there, and he'd take a map, and he would take photographs, and he would take all these other artifacts, and he would put those like in a museum.
So you didn't have to go.
And and he'd put them in a box or in a container or something like that, and he would have it so you could see the geological artifacts, you could see the maps, you could see the photographs, and say, okay, this is from that place, without actually having to, because there's no other way to view that site than to go to the site. But the non-sites can be anywhere. They can be put in any museum or any context. So
got it.
So that's the difference.
Yeah.
Hopefully that.
I enjoyed that video. I loved I liked the Star Wars video, the Impression Wars video.
Yeah, it's only a 7 out of 10. But
how many videos are you up to now?
I don't know. There's probably close to 700 pieces of content.
It's a lot of journeying into the archives.
Well,
I'm just picking out random favorites that appeal to me.
Picking out random favorites.
That the title or the picture appeals to me, or the description.
Okay.
But I'm trying to mix it up.
Mix it up,
I think we did a good job of mixing it up today.
A range of different artist styles.
And time periods.
So.
Hopefully you learned a lot.
Well,
And we're entertained, because according to Mr. Burgher. He's all about entertainment.
I want it to be entertaining. I want it to be worth the listen. I want it to be worth the watch. I want it to be worth the effort. Which is why I've, like in the podcast, I went from it being, in my mind, it was like, it's just going to be a podcast. I'm not going to do any clips. I'm not going to do any cuts. I'm not going to put any pictures in. It's just going to be me, you, talking, nothing else. No other images.
Right.
And starting last week, I thought, I think people need to see the stuff. I think it needs to be.
Yeah, there's certain things that I do think.
It's like, like when we're talking about, what really struck me last week was when we were talking about a problem we all live with, and for people not to be able to see the painting that we're talking about, well, it doesn't really, talking about it doesn't really hit home the same way as looking at it. So I thought,
well, but that would intrigue them a little bit to go into the videos.
But I think that's the artistic thing, and I think we have to be willing to evolve and do some different things. And so I thought, I'm going to put pictures in. I'm going to start putting some pictures in there. So I went back and I put some more pictures in. And so in this one, there's pictures.
I'm sure.
Like there's this one.
Yeah, it's our new banner.
Well, the new banner, but I mean that one, like that.
Oh, gotcha. Yes. Okay.
Let's take that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the podcast today.
Please, make sure you like, share, subscribe.
Thank you. Go ahead and finish.
Do all the things. Click all the buttons.
On all the platforms.
Except the dislike button. Don't push that one.
Unless you journey into the archives and don't like something.
Well, even then. Gosh, you're going to mess up my algorithm, you son of a guns.
All right.
Anyway, so there's that, and I think we've covered all the bases, so
thanks for watching.
Bye-bye. See you next time.